Robert stands amidst the carnage of King's Landing, his brow furrowed. The victory feels hollow, tainted by the brutal slaying of Elia Martell and her children. Tywin Lannister stands nearby, his expression unreadable. With the Targaryen brood extinguished, your path to the throne is secure, your grace. He gestures towards the Iron Throne, where Jaime Lannister stands guard, still splattered with Aerys blood. Ned Stark, however, is sickened. He makes no attempt to conceal his disgust. Robert turns, his face etched with weariness. What makes you think I even want the damn chair, Tywin? The old lion's gaze sharpens. Who else would take it? Your grandmother was a Targaryen, you have the strongest claim. Robert snorts, hefting his warhammer. This is my claim. I ended the Mad King's reign of terror. I have no stomach for ruling. If you're handing it to someone, give it to Stark. He gestures towards End. He started this war believing the Starks had the most to lose. I was a fool to think I was the greatest victim. Robert's voice cracks slightly. What say you, End? Will you accept the Iron Throne? End looks at the Iron Throne, then at Tywin. He can't picture a man like Tywin ruling justly. He nods slowly. This was your rebellion, Robert. If you deem me worthy, I will strive to rule fairly. Robert grunts his approval, and End approaches the Iron Throne. As he takes his seat, he feels the eyes of everyone in the hall upon him. The metal spikes are cold and unforgiving, digging into his flesh. My first decree as king, End declares, his voice ringing with authority, is to have the bodies of Elia Martell and her children prepared for burial, and those responsible for their deaths will be arrested immediately. A ripple of shock runs through the hall, most notably on Tywin's face. End's guards move swiftly, seizing Tywin, Gregor Clegane, Amory Lorch, and others complicit in the massacre. Gregor resists, killing several men before Robert, enraged, subdues him. As they are led away, End's shoulders slump with the weight of his new responsibilities. Tywin, Gregor, and Amory are executed by End himself for treason. Jaime is spared death only through the intervention of Jon Arryn and Robert, who convince End to send him to the Wall. Reluctantly, End agrees. He begins receiving homage from the defeated lords, including Mace Tyrell and Doran Martell. They are largely spared retribution, as End prioritizes healing the divisions caused by the war. This leniency allows many royalist houses to yield without further bloodshed. The only exception is Dragonstone, which remains defiant. Robert urges End to storm the castle and kill the remaining Targaryens, but End refuses. He sets sail for Dragonstone himself, determined to resolve the situation peacefully. Outside the castle walls, Sir Willem Darry, the Master-at-Arms of Dragonstone, emerges to meet him. You've held this castle admirably, Sir Willem, End says. I presume you've received my terms. I have, Darry replies, his voice gruff. Let me guess you're here to demand their heads. Some of my advisors believe that is the course I should take. Robert Baratheon certainly does. Of course, the boar wants them dead. Nothing less will satisfy his bloodlust. But his opinion alone does not sway me. I wish to know what you think. I believe peace built on such foundations is not a peace worth having. I offer these terms. A royal pardon to the Targaryen children. They shall be allowed to remain in the Seven Kingdoms as lords, with the houses of the Narrow Sea pledged to them, so long as they keep the king's peace and bend the knee. Darry raises an eyebrow. Generous, if I may say so myself, may I offer a suggestion? You may. Dragonstone is not going anywhere. Let them remain there, but let them be raised on the mainland. They will be less likely to rebel if they don't feel like prisoners. My cousin, Sir Raymond Darry, would be happy to foster them. He is your ally, and our house's fortunes have waned due to this war. He's unlikely to raise his banners in rebellion. Very well, End agrees. Those terms are acceptable. With that, the garrison of Dragonstone yields to Ned Stark, and the Targaryen children are brought out. Viserys, holding Daenerys' hand, eyes End warily. The new king appears cold and grim to the young prince. They are led onto a boat and taken to Castle Darry. The surrender of Dragonstone marks the end of Robert's rebellion. End begins his reign with Jon Arryn as his hand, focusing on repairing the realm. He offers the heads of Tywin and Gregor to Dorne to appease them, though Robert rages at End for letting them live. Robert is devastated by the news of Lyanna's death, uniting the two friends through grief. Robert then retreats to Storm's End to rule his domain. For several years, things proceed smoothly. End works tirelessly to heal the war's wounds in ways Robert never could. While lacking Robert's charisma, End compensates with honor and compassion. He rules fairly and wisely, avoiding harsh punishments and urging cooperation. Then Balon Greyjoy launches his rebellion. Houses across Westeros rally to quell the threat. Robert and Stannis volunteer, but even former enemies like the Tyrells and Kevin Lannister lend their strength. The Ironborn are driven from the mainland, and a coalition army lands on the Iron Islands. Many heroes and major houses participate, but a surprising figure emerges: Viserys Targaryen, serving as Sir Raymond Darry's squire. The Darry Lord boasts of Viserys' intelligence and skill, claiming he shows promise with weapons. The former prince wins the respect of his peers, even killing an Ironborn warrior during a night raid. The Greyjoy rebellion is swiftly crushed, marking a resounding victory for the crown. As End prepares to depart, he watches Viserys and begins making regular visits to the Targaryen children at Castle Darry, observing their progress and inquiring about their well-being. Sir Raymond provides reports with cool courtesy. End finds Daenerys initially timid but quickly warming to him. He teaches her to ride and tells her stories of the North, which fascinate her. Viserys, however, remains distant, polite but guarded. Raymond boasts that Viserys is clever and dutiful, showing considerable skill in arms under his training. After each visit, End is thoughtful. Though he is king, he secretly desires to relinquish the crown. He hasn't shared these plans with anyone. Having witnessed the devastation of the recent war, the last thing End wants is for the lords of Westeros to begin jockeying for the throne. As he watches the young Targaryens grow, an idea begins to form: to one day restore the crown to them. He is impressed by what he sees. Once Viserys is knighted, he is named Lord of Dragonstone and granted dominion over Cracklaw Point as a gesture of goodwill, as those houses seem particularly loyal to House Targaryen. Willem Darry, formerly Castellan of Dragonstone, now serves as Viserys' advisor. During these years, Willem isn't idle. While End and the Seven Kingdoms focused on the Targaryens, Darry searched for allies. While traveling across Essos, he encounters Illyrio Mopatis. Illyrio promises not gold or ships, but something better: contact with the Golden Company. He explains that he has contacts within both the Golden Company and the Seven Kingdoms who can assist in restoring the Targaryens to power. But to do so, they must ensure that Daenerys marries young Griff, a boy Illyrio claims is Rhaegar's son Aegon. Willem informs his kin back home who work to gather allies. However, many old allies no longer wish to support them. The Dornish had been given the heads of Tywin and the Mountain, and the Tyrells are largely indifferent. This forces them to seek new allies. They find one in Cersei Lannister, who remains bitter towards the Starks for the death of her father and Rhaegar, whom she wished to marry. She accepts an offer to marry Viserys. Many in the Seven Kingdoms are shocked, as the Targaryens aren't the power they once were. The marriage is stormy, with Cersei becoming one of Viserys' chief advisors, whispering in his ear about the evil of Ned Stark. She paints him as a fool and usurper whose favoritism towards them is a slight, a reminder of their reduced station. "How can you say that? He has given me Dragonstone and more," Viserys argues. "These are insults, my prince, slights wrapped in gifts. Why would he give you something that rightfully belongs to you? It's a reminder that he holds the power, that he sits where you should be." Despite their marriage, Cersei travels across the Seven Kingdoms, flirting with lords and winning them over with charm to gain support. End's efforts to maintain peace were admirable, but many young knights crave adventure, while others seek advancement. Many lesser houses lost wealth and influence supporting the Targaryens and are eager to regain it. Though her uncle Kevin advises against it, he can't stop her. The catalyst arrives when Daenerys expresses her desire to be fostered in the north. Viserys sees this as End taking his sister hostage and refuses to allow it, attempting to ambush her column as she travels through the Riverlands. It is only the heroism of Jon Snow that saves her, allowing her to reach the neck. End orders Viserys to stop, threatening to strip him of Dragonstone. This insult is the final straw. Viserys and Cersei rally their forces for war. The war begins in the Riverlands. Cersei's charisma and Viserys' claim to the Iron Throne sway many disillusioned lords. They storm the Golden Tooth, their army moving like a storm, looting villages and burning crops. As they capture Pink Maiden, they are met by Jaime Lannister, who deserted the Night's Watch and joined their army. This allows Viserys to lead a secondary force into the Reach, while the Lannisters ravage the Riverlands. Not all Lannister forces join the rebellion. Sir Kevan refuses to march, but Jaime sways many younger lords. In the south, the rebel army is aided by river lords loyal to House Darry. Houses Mouton, Ryger, and Hayford join, pledging their troops. The rebels' strength grows when Viserys secures the support of Balon Greyjoy by promising to recognize his claims to any northern lands he seizes. Balon sends his longships to raid the northern coast. The Stony Shore, Sea Dragon Point, and even the western coast of the Riverlands are under threat. End orders Mace Tyrell to stop the southern invasion while he gathers his forces in the south with Jon Arryn. The northern defenses are entrusted to Meej Mormont and Robb Stark, who organize a counteroffensive, while Wyman Manderly constructs a new fleet. End's host from the Crownlands marches to the Trident, attacking rebellious river lords from behind and joining forces with loyalists. Jon Arryn raises the Lords of the Vale and rides south. Together, they present a force too large for Viserys to face. They retreat west. Just as things appear to improve, news arrives that the Golden Company, bolstered by Jon Cannington, lands at Cracklaw Point. With the royal fleet occupied with the Ironborn, they cannot contest the landing. As they march through the peninsula, they encounter little resistance, as the Cracklaw houses declare support for the Targaryens. They threaten to cut off End's forces from the capital. Seeing this, End sends word to Robert. Despite their differences, Robert hastens to his aid, requesting only to kill the Targaryen pretender. With the Golden Company active, Robert organizes his army and conducts a forced march to Cracklaw Point. End dispatches Jon Snow with a small detachment to chase them. They reach the Crownlands when the sellswords turn at Stokeworth to face them. Jon's force comes under attack by the Golden Company cavalry, who harasses them day and night. Jon Snow's army takes heavy losses but manages to hold his position, hunkering down and raising their shields. Robert's armies arrive from the south, catching the Golden Company between two armies. This forces them back and prevents them from attacking the capital. Robert congratulates Jon for his success and keeps his forces together until End arrives. While this attack stalls, the rebels find greater success in the Reach, where Mace Tyrell is. As Jaime's forces advance, Mace prepares to face them at Golden Grove. Mace's overconfidence proves disastrous. Jaime lures the Reachmen into a trap. While Mace marches north, Jaime sends infantry to engage him, while Adam, Marbrand, and Bronn lead a cavalry force around them and surround them. The battle is a disaster. Mace barely escapes, while Randyll Tarly gathers the remaining forces and retreats. They march towards Bitterbridge, reinforced by recruits. While Mace and Randyll try to regroup, they receive help from Stannis. He sails his fleet up north, picking up Dornish men from Sunspear and rallying them to Oldtown, where they rejoin Mace's host. Seeing this, Jon Arryn also initiates a diplomatic offensive. He reaches out to Kevan Lannister, reminding him that Cersei will bring the house to ruin and offering him the rule of Casterly Rock. Seeing the destruction in the Westerlands and the many knights and lords perished, Kevan gathers his household knights and rises, blocking Jaime's retreat. His greatest diplomatic success is Daenerys, who, witnessing the destruction caused supposedly in her name, decides to lend her voice. Leaving the north, she journeys south and speaks to the lords of the Seven Kingdoms, condemning her brother's actions. This inspires those whose loyalty wavers and convinces Fairweather lords to switch sides. Seeing their support dwindle, Viserys and Cersei realize they must act. They gather their remaining forces and rush to engage Ned Stark. Jaime tries to rejoin them but finds Kevan waiting. Their armies clash. The Golden Company tries to rejoin them, but Jon Snow and Robert Baratheon block their path. End and Viserys' armies collide near the Red Fork. On Viserys' left, Sir Raymond Darry leads a cavalry charge to force a crossing. He meets Jon Arryn's forces. As the horses meet the waters, it becomes dammed with corpses of horses and knights losing their balance. This allows a force of sellswords to rush down the center, meeting End's Crownlanders. Viserys leads his forces in a ferocious charge, his sword swinging. Many foes fall before him as he tries to press deeper. On the left, the Westermen, commanded by Sir Forley Prester, clash with Northern infantry, commanded by End himself and Galbart Glover. The Northern infantry lock shields, diving into the enemy ranks. Viserys' forces fight ferociously. Willem Darry stands beside his prince, cutting through men like a butcher. Sir Forley leads Lannister troops, attempting to turn the tide. End's forces hold strong. The Blackfish commands Riverland archers, thinning the ranks of Viserys' army. Northern spearmen drive back wave after wave of Westermen. Willie's Manderley leads a cavalry charge that flanks the Westermen, driving a wedge. This allows End to lead a charge and meet Viserys in the fighting. Seeing this, Viserys turns his horse and meets him. They clash in a whirlwind of steel. Viserys swings wildly while End counters with calm precision. "Do you even know why you fight, Targaryen?" "For the throne, for the birthright stolen from my family." End breaks the deadlock and slams his pommel into Viserys' chest, knocking him from his horse. The Targaryen scrambles to his feet, pale and bloodied, but manages to block End's attack. "You fight for nothing but your delusions." Viserys lunges, but End sidesteps and brings his sword down, cutting deep into Viserys' chest. The Targaryen staggers back, falling into the mud. The battlefield quiets as word of Viserys' death spreads. His army scatters. End kneels beside Viserys, his face grim. It didn't have to be this way. As the sun sets, End's commanders gather around him. The victory is decisive, but the cost is heavy. Thousands lie dead. Jaime is crushed. He is hanged as an oathbreaker. In the north, Robb and Meege Mormont drive back the Ironborn. The Golden Company is destroyed. This time there is no mercy. Raymond and Willem Darry and Jon Connington are executed. End decides to name Daenerys as his heir. Her actions in the war show her bravery. He offers the defeated lords a choice: pledge allegiance to her or die. With Tywin, Gregor, and Amory dispatched and Jaime confined to the wall, End settles into the daunting task of kingship, aided by Jon Arryn, his hand. Robert, nursing his grief at Storm's End, leaves the governance of the realm largely to End. Lacking Robert's boisterous charisma, End compensates with unwavering honor and a commitment to justice. He rules fairly, dispensing impartial judgments and urging cooperation amongst the houses, rather than resorting to punitive measures that might reignite old feuds. The early years of End's reign are not without their challenges. The most significant comes in the form of Balon Greyjoy's rebellion. The Ironborn, ever restless and yearning for the old ways, see an opportunity in the aftermath of Robert's rebellion. They believe the realm is weakened, distracted, and ripe for plunder. However, End's efforts to foster unity prove remarkably effective. When the Ironborn raise their banners, houses across Westeros, even those formerly loyal to the Targaryens, rally to the crown. Robert and Stannis Baratheon are, of course, the first to offer their swords, but support also comes from the Reach, the Westerlands, and even Dorne. The combined might of the Seven Kingdoms swiftly overwhelms the Ironborn. The Ironborn are driven back to their islands, and a coalition army lands on Pike. Amidst the lords and knights gathered for the campaign, one figure surprises everyone: Viserys Targaryen. Sir Raymond Darry, his guardian, brings the young prince along as a squire. Raymond, ever eager to sing Viserys' praises, boasts of his intelligence and burgeoning martial skills, claiming he shows great promise with a blade. And surprisingly, Viserys proves his worth. During a night raid on the coalition's camp, he slays an Ironborn warrior, earning the grudging respect of his peers. His actions, though born of a desire to prove himself, contribute to the swift and decisive victory against the Greyjoys. Balon Greyjoy is humbled, his rebellion crushed, and the Iron Islands are once again brought to heel. As End prepares to depart Pike, his gaze lingers on Viserys. Something about the young Targaryen intrigues him. He begins visiting Viserys and Daenerys more frequently at Castle Darry, observing their progress and inquiring about their well-being. Sir Raymond always greets him with impeccable courtesy, providing updates on their education and training. He finds Daenerys initially shy and timid, but she quickly warms to End's gentle nature. He tells her stories of Winterfell, of the ancient Godswood, and of the direwolves that roam the northern forests. The young girl is captivated by these tales of a land so different from her own experiences. Viserys, on the other hand, remains more reserved, his demeanor guarded. While Raymond boasts of Viserys' diligence and burgeoning skill at arms, End senses a distance, a hint of resentment simmering beneath the surface. The meetings are often awkward, punctuated by polite conversation but lacking genuine warmth. Despite these reservations, End continues his visits. He believes that shaping these young Targaryens into responsible rulers is crucial for the future stability of the realm. He secretly harbors the idea of one day restoring the throne to them, provided they prove themselves worthy. Over the years, End takes an active role in their development. He ensures they receive a proper education, focusing on history, law, and governance. He encourages Viserys to hone his martial skills, recognizing the importance of a strong leader in a turbulent world. He teaches Daenerys about the importance of compassion, diplomacy, and justice. As Viserys comes of age, he is knighted and officially named Lord of Dragonstone, a symbolic gesture of goodwill and reconciliation. He is also granted dominion over Cracklaw Point, recognizing the loyalty of the houses in that region to the Targaryen cause. Sir Willem Darry, Rhaemond's cousin, a seasoned knight and shrewd strategist, serves as Viserys' castellan and trusted advisor at Dragonstone. But while End and Jon Arryn focus on integrating the Targaryens back into Westerosi society, Willem Darry has his own agenda. He sees End's actions not as genuine goodwill, but as a cunning attempt to pacify and control the Targaryens. He believes that the only way for the Targaryens to truly reclaim their birthright is through force. While the Seven Kingdoms were focused on the Targaryens, Darry was secretly looking for allies. He travels in secret across Essos. He avoids promises of gold and ships. Instead, he promises something even better, the Golden Company. He meets with none other than Illyrio Mopatis. The knight explains that he can use his contacts in the Golden Company and Westeros to put a Targaryen back in charge. To do this, though, he must find the legendary Aegon Targaryen. The old knight agrees. His search leads him to Volantis, where he meets the enigmatic Varys. Varys reveals that Aegon Targaryen, the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Elia Martell, did not die during the sack of King's Landing. Instead, he was smuggled away to Essos by Varys himself, and has been raised in secret, waiting for the opportune moment to reclaim his throne. This information sends shockwaves through Darry. He sees in Aegon a figurehead around which he can rally support. He sees in Daenerys a potential queen. The old knight informs his kin. They gather their allies, but old allies cannot be relied on. Dorne have the heads of Tywin and the Mountain, so their bloodlust is quelled. The Tyrells do not care. They find a surprising ally, Cersei Lannister. She has become even more bitter over the death of her father and of Rhaegar, whom she wanted to marry. When offered Viserys, she accepts him as a husband. They are wed. Cersei becomes one of Viserys' chief advisors. She whispers in his ear about the evil of End. She paints him as a usurper whose favor is a slight. Why has he given you Dragonstone? It rightfully belongs to you. You should be king, not him. She is just one voice among many. Though married, she travels across the Seven Kingdoms. She wins over lords. She charms knights. Many of the knights want adventure. Other lords want the perks they have lost. Her uncle Kevin tells her not to do so, but she persists. The straw that breaks the camel's back comes when Daenerys wishes to be fostered in the north. Viserys sees it as End taking her as hostage. He refuses to allow it. He even tries to ambush her. Jon Snow saves Daenerys and allows her to escape to the north. End orders Viserys to stop and threatens to strip him of Dragonstone. This insult is too much. Viserys and Cersei raise their banners in war. War grips the Riverlands. The charisma of Cersei sways many disillusioned lords. They storm Golden Tooth. Their army moves like a storm, looting and burning. As they capture Pink Maiden, they meet Jaime Lannister. He is a deserter from the Night's Watch. He joins their army. This frees Viserys to go to the Reach while the Lannisters go to the Riverlands. Not all the Lannister forces join the war. Kevin refuses to march. Jaime sways younger and more reckless lords. The Riverlands army is joined by the houses of Mutt and Ryger and Hayford. They swear to the Targs. The rebels' strength grows more when Viserys enlists Balon. He promises Balon the north. Balon sends his ships to raid the north. End orders Mace to stop the southern invasion. He goes south. The northern defenses are given to Mormont and Robb Stark. Wyman Manderley constructs a new fleet. The Crown Lands marches to the Trident. They attack the River Lords and rejoin those loyal. Jon Arryn rides south and joins the force. They retreat further west. The Golden Company arrives with John Connington and Royalist support. End asks Robert for help. He comes and says he wants to kill the Pretender. Robert organizes a force march to Cracklaw. End sends Jon Snow after. At Stokeworth, Jon's forces are attacked and surrounded. Robert arrives and splits the company. Mace Tyrell prepares for Jim's march. Ma's overconfidence does him in. Jaime lures the Reachmen into a trap. Marbrand and Strongbor come from the rear. Marbrand and Strongbor cut off the center. The Blackfish commands the Reach archers. The Tyrells escape, but with heavy losses. At Bitterbridge, they regroup with more recruits. Stannis sails up north and takes Dorne and rallies at Old Town. Jon Arryn has success by reaching out to Kevan Lannister. He wants him to bring the house to ruin. He offers Kevan Castamere. After destruction in the west, Kevan agrees. He gathers knights and blocks off Jim's retreat to the west. Daenerys wants peace. She leaves the north and condemns Viserys' actions. Some fair weather lords join her. They all rush to End and Jaime. Jaime is surrounded. Near Red Fork, the armies collide. Raymond Derry gallops to force crossing, but he clashes with Jon Arryn. Sellswords rush. Viserys is in the thick of it. He is cutting people down. Northern infantry is commanded by End. He does so with Galber Glover, like a relentless tide. Viserys is fighting. He reaches End. They clash. End and Visa clash steel. End dismounts Visa. Then End kills Visa. End and Visa fight as Visa gets bogged down, his dragon wing helmet shining in the light. Visa rushes, but End dismounts him. The battle falls quiet. The army scatters. End knees beside him as the body lies on the Red Fork. Commander gathers. The victory has been won, but it comes at a cost. Jaime is surrounded and executed. Robb and Marge drive the Ironborn away. The Golden Company tries to retreat, but Manderly's fleet cuts them off. Jonnington is captured. They are executed by End. End does not leave them with nothing. If they wish to back a Targaryen, then End names Dany as his heir. Her actions show her bravery. Years pass, and while End Stark has proven himself a capable and just ruler, the seeds of discontent, as they always do, begin to sprout in the fertile ground of ambition and resentment. Westeros, it seems, is never truly at peace. The wounds of Robert's rebellion begin to scab over, but beneath the surface, the infection of old grievances festers. End, tirelessly working to rebuild the realm's infrastructure, dispense even-handed justice, and maintain a fragile peace, finds himself increasingly isolated by his own moral compass. His northern sensibilities often clash with the courtly intrigues of King's Landing, a viper's nest where whispered promises and veiled threats are the currency of power. He trusts few, relying heavily on the counsel of Jon Arryn, his ever-wise hand, and the unwavering loyalty of his northern bannermen. But even their vigilance can't prevent the subtle currents of conspiracy from swirling around the Iron Throne. Central to this growing unrest is, predictably, Cersei Lannister. Imprisoned for a short time after Robert's rebellion and then released back to Casterly Rock, she plots her vengeance from afar. The removal of her father, Tywin, from the political landscape and the exile of her brother, Jaime, to the Night's Watch are wounds that fester within her. While outwardly maintaining a facade of compliance, she subtly undermines End's authority at every turn. Her vast network of informants, remnants of Varys' former web, keeps her apprised of every development in King's Landing, and her considerable wealth allows her to subtly influence key figures in the court. But Cersei's focus isn't solely on revenge. Her primary goal is always the advancement of her family's power and influence. With Jaime gone and Tywin dead, she sees an opportunity to restore the Lannisters' prominence through a carefully crafted alliance, a move that will reshape the political landscape of Westeros. And who better to align herself with than the last vestiges of the Targaryen dynasty? Viserys Targaryen, now a young man chafing under Ent's benevolent, yet still restrictive, rule, is the perfect pawn in Cersei's grand scheme. While outwardly he appears to accept his reduced station, the embers of his family's ambition burn brightly within him. He remembers tales of his father's glory, of the dragons that once soared above King's Landing, and of the divine right that was supposedly stolen from him. Cersei, through intermediaries and carefully crafted letters, begins to subtly manipulate Viserys' simmering resentment. She plays upon his sense of entitlement, fueling his belief that the Iron Throne is his by birthright, and that Ned Stark is nothing more than a usurper. She reminds him constantly of his diminished status, the slights, real and imagined, that he endures at the hands of the Starks and their allies. "You are a king without a kingdom, a dragon without fire," she whispers, her words poisoned to Viserys' fragile ego. Ned Stark keeps you as a pet, a symbol of his own generosity, a reminder of his victory. He allows you to live, but he denies you your birthright. Cersei paints Ned as a weakling and a hypocrite, pointing to his northern honor as a mask for indecision and incompetence. She criticizes his reluctance to embrace the ruthlessness necessary to maintain control, portraying him as a naive fool who is easily manipulated by his enemies. "He spares his enemies," she sneers, "while rewarding those who were his allies in war. Where is the justice in that? Where is the strength? A true king would crush his enemies, not coddle them. These constant barbs slowly erode Viserys' loyalty to End, replacing it with a burning desire for revenge and a desperate longing to reclaim his birthright. He begins to see End not as a protector, but as an obstacle, a barrier standing between him and the Iron Throne. The manipulation doesn't stop with mere words. Cersei, subtly, offers Viserys tangible support. She funnels him funds through intermediaries, allowing him to subtly increase his personal guard and begin amassing a small following of discontented knights and ambitious sellswords. She plants seeds of doubt and discord among the lords of the Narrow Sea, reminding them of their past loyalty to the Targaryens and hinting at the rewards that await those who support Viserys' claim. It's a slow, meticulous process, a spider spinning its web in the shadows, but Cersei is patient. She understands that toppling a king requires more than just ambition. It requires careful planning, strategic alliances, and a touch of ruthlessness. As Viserys' ambition rekindles, so too does the ambition of others who believe that the time is ripe for change. Houses that were once loyal to the Targaryens, but who bent the knee to End out of necessity, begin to reconsider their allegiances. They see the cracks in Ent's rule, the growing unrest among the common folk, and the discontent among the nobility, and they sense an opportunity to regain lost power and influence. In the Reach, Lord Tyrell, while outwardly compliant, secretly harbors resentment over the reduced power and influence of his house. He remembers the days when the Tyrells were second only to the Targaryens in power, and he dreams of restoring his family to its former glory. He sees Viserys as a potential vehicle for achieving this goal, a young, malleable king who can be easily influenced by the right advisors. In Dorne, the Martells still mourn the death of Elia and her children, and they harbor a deep-seated hatred for the Lannisters, who they believe were responsible for their deaths. While Ent's decision to offer them the heads of Tywin and Gregor Clegane helped to appease their anger, the wounds of the past are slow to heal. They see Viserys as a potential tool for exacting revenge on the Lannisters and restoring Dornish pride. These houses, along with a number of smaller, more opportunistic lords, begin to cautiously communicate with Viserys, pledging their support in secret and offering men, gold, and ships to aid his cause. A network of clandestine meetings and coded messages springs up across Westeros, a web of conspiracy that slowly tightens around End, Stark's throne. A plan begins to emerge, hatched in the shadows and fueled by ambition, resentment, and the promise of power. A plan to restore the Targaryen dynasty to its rightful place, to overthrow the Northern King, and to usher in a new era of dragon rule. The plan is complex, involving a carefully orchestrated series of events designed to destabilize Ent's rule and create an opportunity for Viserys to seize the Iron Throne. It involves fomenting unrest among the common folk, undermining Ent's authority in the eyes of the nobility, and forging alliances with key players in the Seven Kingdoms. One key element of the plan is to exploit the growing resentment among the common folk towards Ent's policies. While Ent's attempts to implement fair laws and improve the lives of the poor are well-intentioned, they often clash with the entrenched interests of the wealthy nobility. This creates a sense of resentment among the lower classes, who feel that End is not doing enough to address their grievances. Cersei and her co-conspirators subtly exacerbate this resentment by spreading rumors and misinformation about Ent's policies, portraying him as an out-of-touch northerner who is more concerned with pleasing his allies than with addressing the needs of the common folk. They also exploit the traditional rivalry between the North and the South, playing upon the prejudices and stereotypes that exist between the two regions. Another key element of the plan is to undermine Ent's authority in the eyes of the nobility. Cersei and her allies do this by questioning his legitimacy as king, reminding the lords of Westeros that he was not chosen by the Great Council, but rather seized the throne by force after Robert's death. They also subtly criticize his leadership, portraying him as indecisive, weak, and easily manipulated. They spread rumors about his personal life, suggesting that he is unfit to rule because of his northern ways and his supposed lack of experience with courtly intrigues. They also exploit the growing rivalry between the North and the South, playing upon the prejudices and stereotypes that exist between the two regions. Finally, Cersei and her co-conspirators work to forge alliances with key players in the Seven Kingdoms, including houses Tyrell and Martell. They offer these houses promises of power and influence in exchange for their support in overthrowing End and restoring Viserys to the Iron Throne. Slowly, painstakingly, the pieces are put into place. The web of conspiracy grows stronger, more intricate, and more dangerous with each passing day. The plan to restore the Targaryen dynasty is gathering momentum, fueled by ambition, resentment, and the promise of power. The storm is brewing, and Ned Stark, blind to the machinations unfolding around him, is about to find himself caught in its fury. The court at King's Landing, once a place of relative stability under Ned's watchful eye, begins to resemble a tinderbox, ready to explode at the slightest spark. Whispers and rumors replace open discourse, and alliances shift like sand in the wind. Suspicion permeates the air, and even Ned's most trusted advisors find themselves questioning the loyalty of those around them. Jon Arryn, ever vigilant, senses the growing unrest, but he struggles to pinpoint its source. He sees the discontent among the common folk, the growing resentment among the nobility, and the increasing tension between the North and the South, but he doesn't fully grasp the extent of the conspiracy that is unfolding around him. He warns Ned of the dangers that lie ahead, urging him to be more cautious and to trust fewer people. He advises him to crack down on dissent and to root out the troublemakers who are spreading rumors and misinformation. "Your Grace," he says, "the realm is like a garden. If you let the weeds grow unchecked, they will choke the life out of the flowers." But Ned, ever mindful of the dangers of tyranny, hesitates to take such drastic measures. He believes in justice and fairness, and he is reluctant to use force to suppress dissent, even when he knows that it is being used to undermine his rule. "I cannot rule with fear, Jon," he says. "If I do, I will become no better than the Mad King." This reluctance to embrace ruthlessness is seen by his enemies as a sign of weakness, and they exploit it to their advantage. They know that Ned's northern honor will prevent him from taking the necessary steps to protect his throne, and they use this knowledge to further their own agenda. As the conspiracy gathers momentum, Ned Stark finds himself increasingly isolated, surrounded by enemies who are plotting his downfall. He clings to his northern values, his sense of justice, and his belief in the goodness of humanity, but these qualities, which once served him so well, may ultimately prove to be his undoing. The Iron Throne, which he accepted so reluctantly, is about to become a battleground once more, and the fate of Westeros hangs in the balance. The seeds of discontent have been sown, and now the harvest is about to begin. The war begins in the Riverlands. Cersei's charisma and viceroy's claim to the Iron Throne sway many disillusioned lords. They storm through the Golden Tooth, and their army moves like a storm, looting villages and burning crops. But as they capture Pink Maiden, they receive an unexpected visitor, Jaime Lannister, who deserted the Night's Watch and joins their army. This frees up viceroys to lead a secondary force into the Reach, while the Lannisters rampage through the Riverlands. Not all the Lannister forces join this war, though. Sir Kevan refuses to march, along with some of the older lords, but Jaime manages to sway many younger and more reckless lords to join him. South of the Riverlands, the army is aided by an additional force of river lords loyal to House Darry, swayed by their promises. Houses Mouton, Ryger, and Hague all join in, pledging their troops to their army. But as the rebels' strength grows, Viserys manages to secure the support of Balon Greyjoy by promising to recognize his claims to any northern lands he seizes. Hearing this, Balon sends his longships to raid the northern coasts. Soon, the Stony Shore, Sea Dragon Point, and even the western coast of the Riverlands are under threat. Ned orders Mace Tyrell to stop the southern invasion while he gathers his forces in the south with Jon Arryn. The northern defenses are given to Meej Mormont and Robb Stark, who begin organizing a counteroffensive, while Wyman Manderly constructs a new fleet. Ned's host from the Crownlands marches to the Trident, attacking the rebellious river lords from behind and joining up with forces still loyal to him. Meanwhile, Jon Arryn raises the Lords of the Vale and rides south. Together, they present a force too large for Viserys to face, and he is forced to retreat further west. But just as it seems like things might finally be looking up, news arrives that the Golden Company, bolstered by Jon Connington and other exiled loyalists, lands at Cracklaw Point. With the royal fleet busy dealing with the Ironborn, they cannot contest these landings. As they march through the peninsula, they encounter almost no resistance, as the Cracklaw houses all declare their support for the Targaryens. They emerge and threaten to cut off Ned's forces from the capital. Seeing this predicament, Ned sends word to his old friend Robert, asking for his help. Despite their differences, the hero of the Trident wastes no time in coming to his friend's aid, asking only that he be allowed to kill the Targaryen pretender. With the Golden Company threatening King's Landing, the energetic Robert organizes his army and conducts a forced march to Cracklaw Point, while End dispatches Jon Snow with a small detachment to chase after them. They soon reach the Crownlands proper when the sellswords turn at Stokeworth to face them. Jon's force soon comes under attack by the Golden Company cavalry that harasses them day and night. Jon Snow's army takes heavy losses but manages to hold his position. He has his men hunkered down, raising their shields and holding back, just as Robert's armies arrive from the south, catching the force between two armies. This drives the Golden Company back and prevents them from attacking the capital. Robert congratulates Jon for this success and keeps his forces together until End arrives. But while this attack stalls, they have far more success down south, where Mace Tyrell is. As James' forces advance south into the Reach, Mace Tyrell is ready to face them at Golden Grove. But Mace's overconfidence proves disastrous. The cunning Jaime Lannister lures the Reachmen into a trap. While Mace marches his force north, Jaime sends his infantry to engage him, while Adam Marbrand and Strongbor lead a cavalry force around them and begin to surround them. The battle proves disastrous, and Mace barely manages to escape, while Randall Tarly manages to gather the remaining forces and escape. They continue marching towards Bitterbridge, where they are swelled with recruits. While Mace and Randall Tarly try to regroup their forces, they are not in a place to challenge them, but they receive help from an unexpected place. Stannis sails his fleet up north, picking up Dornishmen from Sunspear and rallying them to Oldtown, where they rejoin Mace's battered host. Seeing this situation, Jon Arryn also pushes for a diplomatic offensive to try to gain allies. He reaches out to Kevan Lannister, who remains in the Westerlands, reminding him that Cersei will bring the house to ruin and offers the rule of Casterly Rock to his branch. Seeing the destruction in the Westerlands and how many knights and lordlings perished convinces him to take action. Gathering his household knights and some of the older lords, he convinces them to rise and block off James' retreat to the west. But his biggest diplomatic success is Daenerys, who sees the destruction caused, supposedly in her name, and decides to lend her voice. Leaving the safety of the north, she journeys south and speaks to the lords of the Seven Kingdoms, roundly condemning her brother's actions. This inspires those lords whose loyalty is in question and convinces a few fair-weather lords to switch sides. Seeing their support bleed away, Viserys and Cersei realize they must do something big. They gather all the remaining forces and rush to engage Ned Stark. Jaime tries to rejoin his host with them but finds Kevan waiting for them. Their armies are battered against one another, while the Golden Company tries to rejoin their forces, but Jon Snow and Robert Baratheon block their path. End and Viserys' armies collide near the Red Fork. On Viserys' left, Sir Raymond Darry gallops with a cavalry charge to try and force a crossing there. He meets Jon Arryn's forces, and as their horses meet, the waters are dammed up with the corpses of horses and knights as they lose their balance. This allows a force of sellswords to rush down the center, meeting Ent's Crownlanders. Viserys is in the thick of it, leading his forces in a ferocious charge, swinging his sword back and forth. Many foes fall before his blade as he tries to press deeper. On the left, the Westermen are commanded by Sir Forley Prester and clash with a disciplined force of Northern infantry commanded by End himself and Galbart Glover. The Northern infantry follows lockstep, shields raised, as they dive deeper into the enemy ranks like a relentless tide. Viserys' forces fight ferociously, their desperation fueling their strength. Willem Darry stands beside his prince, cutting through men like a butcher. Sir Prester leads a large force of elite Lannister troops, pressing the Northmen hard, attempting to turn the tide. However, Ent's forces hold strong. The Blackfish commands the Riverland archers, their volleys thinning the ranks of Viserys' army. Northern spearmen drive back wave after wave of Westermen as Wyman Manderly leads a cavalry charge that manages to outflank the Westermen and drive a wedge between them and the center. This allows End to lead a charge and strike to meet Viserys in the thick of the fighting. Viserys pushes forward, but his forces are getting bogged down. He shouts orders frantically, his voice cracking as he rallies what remains of his forces. His dragon-winged helmet makes him stand out to End as he reaches Viserys. Seeing this, Viserys turns his horse and meets him. The two clash in a whirlwind of steel. Viserys swings wildly, his discipline and training lost in ferocity and desperation. While not coordinated, it pushes End on the defensive. End counters with calm precision, blocking back each attack. "Do you even know why you fight, Targaryen? For the throne, for the birthright stolen from my family." End breaks the deadlock and slams his pommel into Viserys' chest, knocking him from his horse. The young Targaryen scrambles to his feet, his pale hair matted with sweat and blood. But Viserys manages to block this attack. "You fight for nothing but your delusions." Viserys lunges forward, trying to block End off the ground, but he sidesteps and brings his sword down in a clean arc, cutting deep into Viserys' chest. The Targaryen staggers back, falling into the mud. The battlefield quiets as word spreads of Viserys' death. His army, leaderless and broken, begins to scatter. End kneels beside Viserys, his lifeless body, his face grim. It didn't have to be this way. As the sun sets, End's commanders gather around him. The victory is decisive, but the cost is heavy. Thousands lie dead on the field, their blood staining the waters of the Red Fork. The rest of the army soon fall, as Jaime, surrounded by 3 armies, is crushed and is hanged as an oathbreaker. In the north, Robb and Midge Mormont lead a series of daring attacks that drive the Ironborn back the way they came. Meanwhile, the Golden Company tries to retreat through the Maidenpool, but the newly constructed fleet of Wyman manderly destroys their fleet and cuts them off. Jon Connington and much of the Golden Company are soon captured, along with most of the remaining Targaryen loyalists. This time, it is not a time for mercy, as many of these loyalists who were once offered mercy now face the executioner's sword. Among them are Raymond and Willam Darry and Jon Connington. They are personally executed by End. But he does not leave them with nothing. If they wish to back a Targaryen, End decides to name Daenerys as his heir. Her actions in the war show her to be brave and willing to stand by her people. So End offers the defeated lords a chance to pledge their allegiance to her or die. The Red Fork runs redder than ever before. The victory here is decisive. Viserys Targaryen is dead, his rebellion crushed, but the battlefield, it tells a grim tale. Thousands upon thousands of men lie slain, their blood staining the very earth and turning the river into a crimson tide. Lords and commoners, Northmen and Reachmen, Riverlanders and Westermen, all united in death. The cost of this victory, it's almost unbearable. In the wake of the battle, pockets of resistance melt away like snow in summer. Jaime Lannister, surrounded by the combined forces of Kevan Lannister, Mace Tyrell and Stannis Baratheon, is finally brought to heel. The Oathbreaker is brought to justice, his rebellion is crushed, and he is hanged as a traitor to the crown. To those that joined him, all of the rebellious lords who bent the knee to the former Prince of Dragonstone were stripped of their lands and titles. In the north, Robb Stark and Midge Mormont lead a series of daring raids that drive the Ironborn back to their islands, leaving behind burning longships and drowned corpses. The Golden Company, attempting to retreat through the Maidenpool, find their path blocked by Wyman Manderly's newly constructed fleet. The sea is ablaze with burning ships and the screams of drowning men as the sellswords are cut off. Jon Connington, along with many of the remaining Targaryen loyalists, are captured, their dreams of conquest shattered against the unforgiving shores of Westeros. This time, however, there is no mercy. The well of forgiveness has run dry. The lords who were once offered clemency, who spat upon that kindness and plunged the realm back into war, now face the headsman's axe. Among them are Raymond and Willam Darry, their hopes of restoring the Targaryen dynasty extinguished along with their lives. Jon Connington, the exiled hand who returned to Westeros seeking to reclaim a throne that was never his, also meets his end. Ned Stark, King of the Andals and the First Men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms, personally oversees the executions. His face is etched with weariness, his heart heavy with sorrow. He offers the condemned a final chance to recant their support for the Targaryens, to swear fealty to the crown, but few accept. They go to their deaths defiant, their eyes fixed on a dream that will never be. The weight of their deaths bears down on End. Each swing of the axe chips away at his spirit, reminding him of the futility of war, the senselessness of violence. He had sought to build a better world, a more just world, but all he has accomplished is to drown Westeros in more blood. The cycle of violence seems endless, each generation doomed to repeat the mistakes of the last. As the dust settles, Westeros is left to count its dead and lick its wounds. The realm is weary, exhausted by years of war and strife. But amidst the ashes of destruction, a glimmer of hope begins to emerge. End understands that more is needed, more than just executions and punishments, more than just a return to the status quo. Westeros needs a leader who can unite the realm, a leader who can inspire hope, a leader who can break the cycle of violence. And to secure that, End has to make a decision, a choice that will determine the future of the Seven Kingdoms. He summons Daenerys Targaryen to Riverrun. The young Targaryen princess arrives with a small retinue of northern guards, her face pale with grief and apprehension. She has heard the tales of the Red Fork, the slaughter, the executions. She knows that her brother's rebellion has failed, that her dreams of returning to her ancestral home lie in ruins. And she knows that she stands before the man who crushed that dream. End greets her with a gentle smile, his eyes filled with a kindness that surprises her. He leads her to a quiet chamber, away from the prying eyes of the court. He offers her a seat and pours her a cup of wine. "Daenerys," he says, his voice soft and grave, "I know this has been a difficult time for you." Daenerys nods, her throat tight with emotion. "My brother, he was misguided," she says, her voice barely a whisper. "He was blinded by ambition and pride. He did not understand the true cost of war." "He paid the ultimate price," End says, his eyes filled with sorrow. "But his actions have consequences that extend far beyond his own death." "I know," Daenerys says, her voice filled with despair. "He has brought ruin upon our house. He has made it impossible for us to ever return to Westeros." "That is not necessarily true," End says, his voice firm. "I believe that there is still a place for the Targaryens in this realm, but that place must be earned, not taken by force." Daenerys looks at him, her eyes filled with confusion. "What do you mean?" she asks. End takes a deep breath and says, "I intend to name you as my heir." Daenerys is stunned into silence. She stares at End, her mind struggling to comprehend his words. But I am a Targaryen," she stammers. "The people of Westeros will never accept me as their queen." "They might if they see that you are different from your brother," End says, his voice filled with conviction. "If they see that you are willing to put their needs before your own, if they see that you are committed to building a better future for this realm." "But why me?" Daenerys asks. "Why not someone else, someone who is more popular, more powerful?" "Because I believe that you have the potential to be a great ruler," End says, his eyes filled with hope. "I have seen your compassion, your courage, your determination. You stood against your brother's violence. You were willing to condemn his actions, even though it meant turning against your own family. That takes strength of character, Daenerys, and it is the kind of strength that Westeros needs right now." "But I am young," Daenerys says, her voice filled with doubt. "I have no experience in ruling. I am not ready to be queen." "No one is ever truly ready to be king or queen," End says, his voice filled with understanding. "But you will have advisors to guide you, to help you learn the ropes, and I will be there for you every step of the way." Daenerys looks at End, her eyes filled with gratitude. "I don't know what to say," she says, her voice choked with emotion. "I am honored by your offer, but I am also afraid. I don't know if I am worthy of such a responsibility." "You are," End says, his voice filled with confidence. "I believe in you, Daenerys, and I know that you will not let me down." He pauses and then adds, "There is one condition, however." Daenerys' heart sinks. She had dared to hope, but now she fears that the offer will be withdrawn. "What is it?" she asks, her voice barely a whisper. "You must marry," End says, his voice grave. "To solidify your claim to the throne, to unite the realm. And you must choose a husband who is worthy of you, who will stand by your side and help you rule wisely." Daenerys nods slowly, her mind racing. She knows that this is a necessary condition, a political reality that she cannot escape. But it also fills her with dread. She has no desire to marry, to be bound to a man she does not love. But she also knows that she must do what is best for Westeros, even if it means sacrificing her own happiness. "I understand," she says, her voice resigned. "I will do what is necessary." "Good," End says, his voice filled with relief. "Then let us begin. Let us work together to build a better future for Westeros. A future where peace and justice reign, where the cycle of violence is broken, and where the Targaryens can finally find their place in this realm." With that, Daenerys Targaryen accepts Ned Stark's offer, pledging to serve as his heir and to rule Westeros with wisdom and compassion. She knows that the path ahead will be long and difficult, filled with challenges and obstacles. But she also knows that she is not alone. She has Ned Stark by her side, and she has the hope of a better future to guide her. And as she looks out over the Red Fork, over the bloodied waters and the fallen bodies, she makes a solemn vow. She will not let their sacrifices be in vain. She will build a better world, a world worthy of their sacrifice. She will be the queen that Westeros needs, the queen that Westeros deserves. The task ahead is monumental, the path uncertain. But for the first time in a long time, Daenerys Targaryen feels a flicker of hope. and in that hope lies the future of Westeros.